Welcome to The Actor and the Engineer. My name is Paul James. I come from the acting background.
And I'm Josh Knapp. I'm a broadcast engineer.
Here we go.
All right, this week we're going to talk about two movies that are on Netflix, or not Netflix, on Redbox, or to rent right now. And the first one is Big Eyes, a Tim Burton movie. And the second one we're going to talk about is A Most Violent Year, the J.C. Chandor.
Yeah, I was looking at it last night wondering what it was going to be.
Yeah, I've never actually seen any interviews with him or heard his name said by anyone.
Chandor sounds right to me, but you know me, like I don't have any right to say anything about how to pronounce people's names.
So, yeah, but before that, I just wanted to bring up a couple of, movie news things that have come out in the last couple of days. Two of my geeky director, favorite directors, Nicholas Winding Refn. His new movie
Fanning.
has Elle. I don't know if it's Ellie Fanning or Elle Fanning.
I've always heard Elle Fanning.
Okay, Elle Fanning. And she's going to be the star in his new movie, Neon Demon, which is kind of scary in that the pictures that they're showing are very, they have neon lights and stuff, and he really kind of went into that with Only God Forgives. And I hope it's not like it seems like he's building on, like he started, like he obviously had Bronson, but that was its own thing. And then he also had Valhalla Rising, which still haven't really seen. That was more of a Dutch film. I get Dutch and Danish mixed up. He's from the Netherlands, so I think. So anyway, that was a foreign film. But then, so you had Drive, and he had the synth pop soundtrack, and then with Only God Forgives, he has synth pop soundtrack and neon,
right.
And now it seems like with this one, he's going to have synth pop soundtrack, neon, and then other weird stuff, which is going to be like, I don't know, vampire-y type stuff.
Well, I saw a picture. She's on like a lounge chair, if you will, or chaise lounge, if you will, and she's covered in blood, and she's wearing like a blue satin dress, and she looks way grown up all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And he's on the side of the couch sitting there, and he's kind of got a French artist striped shirt, tight shirt, pants.
The thing on his
what's that all about?
Stomach. I don't know,
that's
but
weird.
Because in Drive, all the pictures, and they had like on the Drive Blu-ray, they have like an extra, and some of the things show him like shooting Drive, and then even pictures from him shooting Only God Forgives. He's wearing this like thing around his stomach,
and he doesn't wear a shirt most of the time he's filming.
Sometimes he does, and sometimes he doesn't. In this case, he was wearing a shirt, but I
but
just
no
don't know
shoes.
what it is. Yeah, he doesn't wear shoes. I don't know what
He's interesting. He's interesting. I don't know what it is either, but I'm interested. I stared at it for a couple of minutes today. I saw it on Twitter, and I was like, what exactly is this?
And initially, I didn't even notice there was blood. But
on her arm.
Yeah, and then also on her neck, too.
Oh, is there? Okay.
Yeah, it's just, you just have to look closer.
So everybody's got to do a vampire movie nowadays.
I don't
Jim
know.
Jarmusch does
maybe
it.
it's not vampire. It's just the only thing that I've seen, she
mark
plays,
on the neck, blood.
She plays an aspiring model who moves to L.A. and finds herself surrounded by beauty-obsessed women who'd kill for what she has. So it could be vampire, it could be not, it could be cultish, I don't know. But so that's the first one. Oh, it's also got Christina Hendricks in it, who was in Drive, and she's on Mad Men.
Love her.
Yeah, she's great. Jenna Malone's in it.
I saw her on Broadway.
Jenna Malone.
In Doubt.
Oh, yeah.
The one Amy
Adams
was nominated for the Oscar for the role. Yeah, she was great.
That's cool. And then the other one, the other new information about a new movie is Nacho Vigalando's new movie. He's the guy who did Time Crimes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's called Colossal, and they just announced that Anne Hathaway is going to be the star, and she's going to see. Sometimes I don't like these descriptions. Some people are calling it Transformers versus adaptation. Other people are calling it Godzilla meets Being John Malkovich, and it's just kind of like, okay. But it's supposed to be about a woman who finds out, I guess, that like she's in a bad place, and she finds out that this Godzilla thing is going on, is terrorizing Tokyo, and she realizes that she's like somehow connected to the Godzilla lizard monster. So she goes to Tokyo, I guess.
Can you imagine if you just turned it on right now and heard that last part of the conversation? People would be like, what the hell are they talking about?
I would not be interested in it if it was anybody but Nacho Vigilante. I would think you were describing a really bad straight-to-video movie.
It almost sounds like a joke.
It sounds like Sharknado.
Yes, it's exactly.
It
sounds like a bunch of producers sat around doing too much cocaine and thought of the worst idea for a movie ever, and that's what they came up with. But like Time Crimes, I loved it.
Yeah.
Anne Hathaway, I love her.
And
so
it also got me to put his last movie, Open Windows, on my Netflix queue because it has Elijah Wood in it, and it's about some guy who's looking on YouTube or something, or some version of YouTube, that is seeing a woman or girl like being terrorized, and he somehow is able to like go possibly help her or something.
I've heard about that.
Yeah. So, and it's not Nacho Vigalondo. Once again, it's like, it seems kind of hacky. Oh, YouTube and computers and all that stuff. But since it's Nacho Vigalondo, I really want to.
Well, imagine if somebody described Time Crimes to you. What would you think? You would be like, what? That sounds like a really bad Star Trek episode.
Yeah.
But it's really well done.
It's great. It's great.
Very well done.
Yeah, it's tight.
Yeah, that's a good word for it. Yeah.
It's really tight. So, okay. So those were the two new movie information things that I wanted to at least just bring up and say how exciting. And if you haven't heard of Nacho Vigalondo or Nicholas Winding Refn, then you need to seek out their movies. I think they're awesome. So, all right. Well, let's start with Big Eyes, Tim Burton's new movie.
Or latest movie, if you will.
Newest movie, I guess. I'm sure he's working on something. Oh, I thought, is he working on, he may be working on the new Alice in Wonderland. I think they're doing that, but it doesn't really matter. We're not talking about that. We're talking about Big Eyes. And I think that from the very beginning of the movie, I liked the scenery, how it was shot. Kind of reminded me of Edward Scissorhands.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yep.
Yeah. I thought of that too.
The colors were vibrant, which I guess he's kind of known for in those
a little
kind of
toned
Americana.
down, a little bit more realistic, if you will, not as stylistic.
Not Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, or somewhere in between Alice in Wonderland-ish and Edward Scissorhands lies the texture he's got in this film.
But when she was driving away, I mean, it's not a spoiler. At the very beginning, she leaves her husband at the time with her daughter, who's fairly young, and Amy Adams plays the main character, the female main character. She's driving away northern California, and I mean, you've kind of been there, I think. Have you been there?
Yeah, I have.
But
yeah.
I mean, I lived there for a few years, and just seeing those kind of hills and the ocean and stuff, and it's just, and it was that, very saturated color, and I thought that was really, really neat. But from there, it started going downhill.
Interesting.
So how about you?
I was actually, I wish I had timed how long it was going to take you to get to, you started with the positive, which I always appreciate that, not just with you, just with anything. But I wanted to see how long it was going to take us to get to that moment right there. Okay, starting with the positive always. Amy Adams, I mean, she's special, something special about her.
Yeah.
It's always good to see her. She won the Golden Globe for Best Actress in a Comedy Musical for this. That's a whole nother podcast, isn't it? Yeah, what? This last year.
Oh.
Yeah, isn't that weird? There's nothing comedic.
No.
There's nothing funny. There's some funny moments per se, but not in her performance. Her performance is really, it's the best thing in the movie for me.
Yeah.
And the young girl's great too. The daughter, she's great.
The younger
one? The younger version, okay? It's great to see Tim Burton do something completely out of his comfort zone. If you had just turned on this movie and told me, watch this, I would have had no idea it was a Tim Burton film. Not whatsoever. And I thought that was great because I think he relies on style way too much. You don't see any curly Q red and white striped poles in this, which is a big thing with him. You don't see any kind of awkward looking abstract people other than, of course, the paintings, which, that's based on something that somebody really did in real life. I liked the tone and the attitude of the film. I liked a lot of things about it, but literally I'm fighting to keep saying positive things because as soon as the voiceover happened, I was like, I'm done. Why did he need that? I didn't get it.
Well,
and you're exactly right. Once you realize she's going to be as great as she always is, and she is, there's nothing else there for me. Nothing.
Yeah.
And the two guys who wrote this, I looked up their bios. They wrote quite a few different things that I thought were interesting. I can't remember a thing right now. Do you have it pulled up?
I will. That's how much I.
Well, I know that they wrote that John Ritter film, the Bad Child or whatever, or the
Problem Child.
Yes, right. 1 and 2. That's their comedies on the list. But they wrote a couple other things that
Ed Wood.
Yeah, Ed Wood, and then
People versus Larry Flint.
There you go. There it is.
And Man on the Moon.
All three of which I liked. Script wise, I liked all three of those films. This one comes back down to the same thing. What is the point of this movie?
Yeah, and that's the thing that I wrote down was the stakes are really low.
What are the stakes?
It's people are going to be confused and it's going to be awkward.
That's
the stakes.
Yeah, I didn't get it. And, we've already gone 5 or so minutes into it. We have not mentioned once Christoph Waltz, 2-time Academy Award winner. I'm going to say it, and it's going to be recorded. He is miscast. Hands down miscast.
And it's not his fault.
It's not his fault.
Other than he agreed to do the movie.
You know what I thought? The guy who plays the writer, the narrator,
Danny Houston.
He actually looks like the guy in real life.
Oh, yeah, kind of, yeah.
I thought it would have been so much more interesting if he had played the husband and seen what he could have done with the role and rewritten the narrator and the writer part to be more of a supporting character, because it's really not.
It's in and out.
Yeah.
Do you know he's John Huston's son?
No, I did not.
Yeah.
I like him.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah, he's always interesting.
He's been in a couple movies that are much better than this one.
He's that Birth
Children
movie.
without Children of Men. Yes.
And Nicole Kidman, Birth. He's
I haven't seen that one.
The husband to be in that movie. Yeah, no, I like him. He's very I won't say odd looking, but not very cliche movie star looking, which is good. He's a character actor, obviously, but I would have liked to have seen him in a lead role in this. It would have made more sense. It would have humanized this guy. The way Christoph Waltz does it, maybe it's because of his reputation and because of his past work. I'm expecting him to be sadistic and ugly and funny at the same time, like he is in Django Unchained and Inglourious Basterds. There's just nothing about his performance that works. Nothing. I mean, nothing. And I don't think it's his fault. I think it's the way it's written. And then at the end of the movie, when I saw the real guy in the credits, I went, why didn't the narrator play that part? And then they could have rewritten the writer, the narrator.
Well, and it's confusing. So is he supposed to be German?
Yeah, I don't understand that either. Was he trying to doubt? Is this the first movie that he's ever tried to disguise his accent?
Because it's not working.
Not at all.
And so that's, I mean, it's got to be tough for him as an actor to try to do that, but then also he's putting himself in a tough position if he can't make that happen. I mean, he talked about, in the movie, he talks about going to France and all of that, but I mean, I don't know. There may have been one line in there where they dropped in something about Germany or family from Germany, or I don't know, something
Sweden
like that.
Or something, didn't they?
Oh, maybe. Or Austria or something. I don't know. But so the few things that I had written down, I mean, number one, the stakes are really low, and that makes everything else harder to do. Right? You know, the script is going to be hard to write because the stakes are so low. Like, also the dramatic beats in the movie, like the times when I'm supposed to be on the edge of my seat and worried and scared and all of that, I just didn't feel it. The music didn't work. Danny Elfman did the music. I mean, it's not
I don't
like
remember a thing about it.
Yeah. I mean, there's one scene in there where there's a threatening part of the movie and there's a possible fire that could happen, and you kind of see them setting that up. But even when you kind of know the fire's going to happen, like the music was off-putting and the situation wasn't, it just didn't seem scary. I mean, it was kind of supposed to be like a Here's Johnny type moment, but it fell flat. The whole thing fell flat. I mean, it's just people in a room, you know, yelling or talking or whatever, and it never felt like, there never felt like any kind of threat. There was never any stakes. I mean, it just never.
Well, doesn't she just turn around and open the other door? And
she just walks right out.
So why would there be anything at stake? Yeah, every single... I was so perplexed by the last moment. I don't even remember watching that moment. I remember it now that you're talking about it. But I was so into, what just happened? Why did they make that choice? Why am I watching this? What is going on? What am I supposed to be getting from this? It pulled me out.
I think that, I mean, maybe Tim Burton is looking at it. Tim Burton may be being maligned by certain people or critics. Maybe this may be his Ratatouille, you know, his statement against criticism, you know, the Terrence Stamp character, you know, showing up. And I mean, he was strong, but Terrence Stamp is, I mean, he had something to bite down on, you know, that character who's in there like 3 scenes, and
right.
And he's able to, you know, to make it, you know, General Zod it up, I guess. He's able to.
I was wondering how long that was going to take. Yeah.
But still, I mean, I think of him as General Zod. I also think of him
totally
as in the Limey as the dad. You
See,
know?
I think of him in Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. Have you ever seen that?
No.
Oh, it's fantastic. You'll love it. He
Okay.
plays a transsexual drag queen. Well, transsexual performer. Let's put it that way. Yeah, it's
Holy cow.
fascinating.
It must be from like the 70s or something.
No.
Right?
It was mid '90s Australian film.
So he's not the main character then.
No, well, there's 3 main characters.
Okay.
Terrence Stamp, Hugo Weaving, who plays the lead character, also drag queen, and Guy Pearce, also drag queen. And Guy Pearce is fantastic. Like, you know, we've seen him a million times, and he's clearly heterosexual in real life and clearly heterosexual in all of his movies. In this one, you'll be like, oh my goodness, I didn't know Guy Pearce had a gay twin brother, because he's so into it. I mean, he's really... It's actually a really well done movie. It's also, there's something about Australian films also that seem to work for me. I don't know. There's something about where their heart and the integrity of the films, and just something about them. And this is really, really, it's an interesting film. You should check it out. It's fun. It's a performance by Terrence Stamp that will make you look twice. You'll be like, wait, what? What are you doing? But it's really well done.
That's cool. But anyway, I mean, I think that what that critic is saying is that just because it's paint, you know, just because it's paint on canvas doesn't mean it's art, and just because it's, you know, just because people buy it doesn't mean it's art. And so I don't know if Tim Burton is maybe trying to echo that, or if he's trying to say probably the opposite, because he did a whole movie on Ed Wood, which a lot of people would say that like Ed Wood's films are, you know, dreck and they're worthless.
Oh yeah.
But Tim Burton obviously really appreciated the artistry of Ed Wood. I
think he's fascinated by the fact that somebody like Ed Wood exists,
and that he had art inside of him, and he was going to let it out, you know. And so I don't know, this movie, you can pull some stuff out of it as far as like commercialization of art, and
like
all of that stuff.
Like the posters and
sure.
that commercialization is bad. It hinders the art form, so forth and so on. But there's nothing that's completely nothing is nothing. I don't know what else to say. You're not hit over the head. It's not exaggerated to the point where you're like, even if it was campy in a way, I was craving something from Tim Burton in his style. And normally I'm like, dude, slow it down. Not everything is supposed to look like Nightmare Before Christmas. So I was glad for him that he was actually able to do something outside, you know, like I said, his comfort zone. But if there was ever a movie where you needed some psychedelic, trippy Tim Burton thing, it was this one. Why didn't the paintings come alive and talk to her, or talk to him,
the only thing
or
they had
haunt him? The big eyes,
the big eyes of the people in the
She kept
grocery
talking
store.
about they created. Yeah, that was kind of cool. That was interesting.
That was Tim Burton.
But why was she seeing them? Was it because she was obsessed with this? Was she mad about the fact that she couldn't own these things? Or like it seemed to relieve her to make these paintings, not obsessed. She wasn't obsessed with the character she was painting. She said it was her emotional inside coming out, and that all of the paintings were her children, even though they were of children, but they were all children to her, because, you know, painting starts with a blank canvas and then you created something, so you actually give birth to it. All of that's way more interesting sounding than this movie to me. It's just when it doesn't work, it's hard to describe why something doesn't work.
Yeah, and another thing that I was gonna do is kind of bring up. I read an article recently. Well, I mean, it was like a post on somewhere, but they talked about how people describe things like as plot holes and incorrectly describe something as a plot hole in a movie, and they kind of go through and talk about the difference between a plot hole, continuity error, an unexplained event, unrealistic event, and a character flaw. So, I mean, at least hopefully this movie will kind of help us talk through like the differences, because it makes a lot of sense. What I would have called a plot hole in this movie, this is where I got into this, there was a certain scene in the movie that involved Jason Schwartzman.
Okay, tell me the scene, and then I'll guess which one of the categories it is.
Okay, sure. Well, I haven't even given you descriptions
of
each of them.
Okay, go for it.
But just a plot hole is kind of what you would consider a very specific gap or inconsistency in the storyline that creates a paradox in the story that cannot be reconciled with any explanation. Like, it's impossible to explain it. Like, poor movies will have plot holes. And then they give examples. I mean, we could go deep into it. The one example they gave on plot hole is a Butterfly Effect, where, time travel movies probably have a good chunk of plot holes in them if they're not done properly. But so there was a specific scene in the Butterfly Effect they talk about. But and then they talk about a continuity error, which we've all seen before. Glass of water's on the table, they cut away from it, now it's empty, they cut away, they cut back to it, now it's full. I mean, that's a continuity error, and that's just bad script supervisors just not knowing what they're doing. And then the other ones that they talk about are unexplained events. The example they give, which is a perfect example, is Dark Knight. Is it Dark Knight Rises or Dark Knight? Dark Knight Rises, where he's in the Turkish prison.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he's in New York City again, or Gotham. It's like he gets out of the Turkish prison, and then he's still in Turkey, and then all of a sudden he's inside the city that has been barricaded. So a lot of people were complaining and saying like, well, how did he get there? He didn't have any money. He got out of the Turkish prison, didn't have any money.
He's billionaire Bruce Wayne, who's Batman.
There you go. So that is not a plot hole. A lot of people might consider that a plot hole, but it's not technically a plot hole because it can be explained. It just wasn't explained on screen.
Right.
Okay, so then
it doesn't need to be explained either.
Well, I don't think it does either. Yeah,
he broke his back.
It's kind of boring.
Yeah,
to see him fly across the country.
I mean, you don't see him coming out of in the first movie. You don't see how he gets to Alfred. How does he know? How does Alfred know where to get him when he's coming out of Ra's al Ghul's place?
Same thing. So an unrealistic event is yet another thing, and they use the nuke the fridge example from Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, where he somehow is part of a nuclear blast, and he gets into a lead-lined refrigerator, and then he gets thrown a mile away, and then he walks out unscathed. So.
Yeah, that happens in the last Wolverine film, where there's a big nuclear. It's not Hiroshima, and Hugh Jackman they climb down into the sewer and survive.
Yeah. So anyway, that's not something that, I mean, that's obviously explained. He gets out and he's fine, but it's not, probably wouldn't actually happen in real life. And then the very last one is a character flaw, which is a decision or action by a character which goes against what logical and or conventional wisdom might suggest, which I haven't heard much of that. Things described like that, but I think that a lot of people that think of something as a plot hole would probably fall into this category of character flaw. So the scene I'm talking about in Big Eyes is Jason Schwartzman, close to the beginning of the movie. He gets all these paintings laid out in front of him. The Christoph Waltz character says, these street scenes are my paintings. And then, oh, what about the Big Eye ones? They're horrible. They're nasty. And he's like, oh, well, those are my wife's paintings. So then the whole movie goes on from there. And the whole time that he gets all famous, about these paintings.
Yeah, he does say it's his wife. Yeah. He does say so. So
I would consider that a character flaw.
No.
I still would of Jason Schwartzman, as opposed to he probably thought that the Christoph Waltz character was pawning off the work, the Big Eye work, as his wife's work because he was ashamed of it.
Okay, that plot line right there is way more interesting than this movie in general. First of all. Second of all, what are they saying that is then? Is it considered a character?
Oh, nobody's saying anything
okay.
about it.
Okay.
I was looking up plot holes.
Okay.
That seemed like a huge plot hole to me. That Jason Schwartzman knew that the Christoph Waltz character's wife, Keen's wife, painted these paintings.
Right.
So why didn't he just come out like right off the bat and be like, hey, this guy didn't paint these paintings. His wife did. So I don't know why he's lying about it. Because that would take down Keen and all this stuff,
But it would make sense to write it that way, because then it would be something else at stake other than
somebody else would know, other than like them trying to keep their daughter from seeing things, which is
ridiculous.
Yeah. So
you're saying that you think that's a character flaw
on the Jason Schwartzman characters,
meaning in the story or in the script? Meaning,
well, so you could say that it's such a poorly written script that I'm trying to dig it out of its very deep grave by saying that it's a character flaw as opposed to a plot hole. But
I'm going with that one. I choose A, sir. I choose that answer. I don't want to be disrespectful because I admire all these people.
Yeah.
But at the same time, literally, and how many times have you ever heard me say this? I literally almost turned it off, and the only reason why I didn't was because we were going to talk about it.
Yep.
And how many times have I ever talked about wanting to turn something off? Never.
Yeah.
I mean, I never fall asleep during movies. I never turn them off. I always stick through them.
So why did you want to watch it initially?
Well, because of Tim Burton,
Okay.
Amy Adams, and
I agree.
Yeah, and I thought I missed something because there was Oscar buzz about it, and incorrect Oscar buzz. Now that I've seen the film, and then when you said let's watch something on Redbox, or we talked about this last week after the show. Let's To Rent. We haven't done that in a while.
Yeah.
And when you texted me and said Big Eyes, and what was the first film you had?
The Babadook.
What is that?
That's I think it's Australian.
Is that on Redbox now, or is it on Netflix?
It's on Netflix streaming right now. That I do. I kind of it's probably going to be so good that I don't want to see it because it's going to be really, really scary and like realistically so.
Oh, so it's a horror film?
A single mother
Okay.
plagued by the violent death of her husband battles with her son's fear of a monster lurking in a house.
Okay, I'm glad we didn't watch that because I was by myself watching these movies, and I have a thing with scary movies. My suspension of disbelief. It has to be done well, but I go there. I really do. But anyway, then when you suggested these two films, Most Violent Year and Big Eyes, I got excited. I was like, yes, I wanted to see these movies. How did I not see these movies?
Yeah.
And I rented Big Eyes first because I knew it was going to be a little bit lighter fare than A Most Violent Year. But I also thought, well, what if Big Eyes is not that good? It's gonna if I see A Most Violent Year first and really love it, it's going to be hard to be motivated to see Big Eyes. I don't know why. I had some kind of instinct about it. And I think I played it right. It was correct for me to watch Big Eyes first. And so that's the reason. Tim Burton, Amy Adams, Christoph Waltz, I got excited. It had a lot of talk about it. And, the subject matter seemed interesting. Those paintings are interesting to me. I would stare at a museum full of those all day long.
Sure.
Because they're interesting. There's something interesting. I would read a book about this lady. I would read a book about this life.
Yeah, and I told Steph when I finished watching it, I was like, this would be a great 30-minute documentary.
Yep.
It would be awesome. I would watch it all day.
Yep.
I would jump to watch it, I guess I should say. So
I was thrilled to see the pictures of her at the end and the real people.
Yeah.
That was more exciting than, which is kind of what I said about Selma too. Something about the grittiness of the real life of somebody, of course, is interesting anyway, but it would have been a much better documentary. You're absolutely right. And it would have been a good documentary for Tim Burton to have made.
Yeah.
He could have had some poetic license with that. That would have been a nice genre for him to tap into.
Yeah.
So maybe he should go back and do a documentary on why he made this film.
Yeah, sure.
Then we might
we might be even more interesting than the film
or might
itself.
have an explanation.
Yeah, that's true. So, all right. Well, I think that
I'm ready to go. Moving on.
Okay, so
moving right along.
Next movie is A Most Violent Year, which was one of the last movies that came out in 2014, and it did get some Oscar buzz initially from people who had started seeing it, and especially since I'm looking it up now. I mean, it did get a Golden Globe nomination for Jessica Chastain. But then the big one that I saw was
National Board of Review.
The National Board of Review
Picture,
said,
actor, and supporting actress.
Yeah, that's huge.
It's huge to a degree. It's like if all of a sudden I knew somebody who won the National Board of Review, I would not shut up about it. But it's not. if you won the National Board of Review and the SAG and the Golden Globe and were nominated for the Oscar, there's something, okay, let's put it this way. If you're nominated for the Golden Globe, the Screen Actors Guild, win the National Board of Review and not nominated for the Oscar, people go, how did they not get nominated for the Oscar? But if you get nominated for the Oscar and the Screen Actors Guild and the Golden Globes, but don't win the National Board of Review, nobody thinks twice about it. Does that make sense?
No.
I mean, it's a great honor, and I'm glad they were honored. And I'm not taking anything away from anybody winning an accolade, especially in acting. I think I know a lot of people think it's a commercialization. It's just to sell movies, and I'm sure that's part of it too. But, people work really hard, and they sell part of their soul and part of who they are every time they put something of integrity on the screen. At least that's what it feels like to me. So I'm glad they won those awards.
And maybe they did it as kind of like maybe they saw the writing on the wall and they were like, this movie needs to be recognized. A similar thing happened with Brazil because it kind of got shut out of any kind of good press or anything. In the United States, it was a big deal about how it got released and all that stuff. The New York Film Critics Circle said that it was the best movie of the year, which, I mean, it didn't win any other awards, but it was one of those things where they wanted to recognize that movie and the problems that Terry Gilliam had to go through to just get it there. So.
Sometimes those people like the National Board of Review get it right.
Yeah.
And you go, wait a second, how did this not get nominated? I'm not saying this is one of those films.
Yeah.
But I will say this. We just talked about Big Eyes, and now we're going to talk about this film. And the one thing I want to say is, now this is what I'm talking about. This movie is what I'm talking about. This movie works for me on every level.
Oh, them's fighting words.
Okay, so you don't agree by your...
No.
Oh, okay. Let me just say a few things first. Okay. You remember how we were talking about Oscar Isaac during Ex Machina? Yeah. And I said, is he always going to play the bad guy? Is he always going to have that kind of edge where you're not sure if he's the bad guy or the good guy? He's going to be the next Han Solo in the movie, even though there's Han Solo in the movie. Remember that conversation?
Yeah.
Well, this is proof he can play the good guy because he's playing a genuinely good guy trying to do the right thing in this film, which... Do you remember the reason why I did not like Boyhood? There were a lot of reasons. Sorry. There were a lot of reasons, but the main reason was when Patricia Arquette walks into the room and sees the kids home with Ethan Hawke and says, "Can I talk to you?" And then they go outside. You know that they're going to argue. You know their kids are going to see it. Cliche.
Yeah.
Then she meets her teacher, falls in love, he becomes an alcoholic or is an alcoholic, abuses her, cliche, cliche, cliche. This movie does the opposite for me. All the way from the title through the characters, you're expecting her to Lady Macbeth him, Jessica Chastain, tries to lady, and he doesn't take the bait. He doesn't. For me, he didn't. So every cliche you could possibly have, everything I thought about looking at Oscar Isaac with the hair, with the coat, the camel coat, colored coat, or I guess it's the camel hair coat, right? Isn't that?
I guess, I don't know.
Very 80s.
Okay.
Very 80s. Same with her hair just coming out of the 70s. Everything about it made me think this is going to be Scarface for this generation. Everything made me think this was going to be a Godfather, Tony Soprano-esque thing. And it's not, which is what I loved about it. It took every gangster cliche and turned it on its head. He refused to live that life. He spent the whole entire movie being his own protagonist to everybody else's antagonist. No matter what he did, people wanted him to go down this violent route, and he refused to do it. And so even the title's ironic. You're thinking, wait, there's not a lot of violence that happens in this movie. What was so violent about this year? It's because it's based in irony that it's not the most violent year. He refuses to have the most violent year by making this deal. So I loved it. Is this going to be one of the first films we completely differ on?
I think so.
Interesting.
I think so.
We have a debate,
people. And it started off from the very beginning. Even after watching the trailer, I watched it, I did watch it on Blu-ray. And so the colors in the movie, I don't know if you noticed, but they're very, was because Steph was in the room when I started watching it. She wasn't really paying attention that much, but I said it has this like patina, like this kind of like just Kodachrome type, like it was more like, it seemed like more like 70s to me, and it was very yellow, and like everybody was like, nobody's skin color was the right skin color, and I don't know if it was going off of like, you know, sodium vapor lights and fluorescent lights, and because I mean that's, you're starting to get into that type of lighting everywhere, and it's very like just how it was lit, all natural light, no real like purpose to how it was lit, I don't think. And then I just read today that the same guy who was the director of photography on this movie also did Selma, which I did not like. And so that right off the bat, before anything happened, I mean, actually the very first scene of him like jogging to that Marvin Gaye song or whatever that was, I thought that was great. But then you start getting into the characters, and you start getting into his character, which you are saying that he's this strong, you know, what, brooding? I mean, he's not.
No, I don't think he was brooding, but I think that instead of picking up arms against his oppressor, he laid down and said, meaning figuratively,
laid down his arms.
Correct. And said, you know what? I'm not going to become what I'm fighting against. What is the expression? Don't become a monster to fight a monster. I think there's an expression like that.
But he's purposefully like gotten himself into.
No, he started a business. So why should he have to end up protecting himself with guns and coming to a round table of gangsters who are completely cliche-less characters? None of those people at that table look like any kind of Tony Soprano gathering at all. Mm-hmm. The other people who own these oil companies in the Northeast. You've got the old guy who's got his granddaughter who looks like your everyday 30-something housewife, mm-hmm. frumpy for lack of a better term. I mean, she's obviously not concerned too much about her physical appearance per se. I mean, she looks like she enjoys McDonald's drive-through. You know, I don't want to be mean and say she's heavy because I don't want that to be the description of somebody, but does she look like she's a leader of a crew of people who are willing to shoot somebody and steal somebody and mm-hmm. to rob somebody to make it ahead in business? No, she doesn't look like that at all. Mm-hmm. I love that. I love the fact that none of those people that he's talking to looks like, the only cliche is that it's a Jewish guy who's lending him the money.
Okay.
That there's a Shylock. That's the only real cliche. But they go as far as making it, what is it called when they wear the hair on the side of the face? The Hasidic Jews.
Hasidic Jews,
yeah. Right.
Well, he was buying that place from the Hasidic Jews.
Right,
yeah.
But if he hadn't gotten the rest of the down payment, then he would have lost his money.
Yeah.
So he's actually giving, money to this guy, sort of lending and borrowing at the same time. Anyway, So back to what we were talking about. I wouldn't say he was brutish. I would say he was a guy who was trying to do the right thing. He bought into a business and wanted to. Why does he have to become a gangster in order to run it?
I'm not saying he has to become a gangster, but his dynamic. So his dynamic with Jessica Chastain, and it made me think, like, so it seems like J.C. Chandor has a knack. I did not see All Is Lost, but the two movies that I've seen, Margin Call and this movie, he decides to like shove you in and pull you out of something, and his choices of where he shoves you in and where he pulls you out are interesting. let's say that, but because I mean, I don't want to get into too many spoilers right now, but I'm going to try to explain this. So you've got Jessica Chastain's character is the hard-nosed, salt of the earth. I don't want to say salt of the earth. She is embracing the gangster style.
Well, her father is obviously not.
And I think that he got the business from her father is what I got from the movie.
Could be, but I just thought that he was trying to not do things like her father, who was in jail.
Exactly, yes.
So he was trying to do the reverse of...
And grow the company and do it in an honorable way. He was doing that in a dishonorable industry.
Correct.
And but see there, you say that this guy is like shiny clean and
I didn't say
trying
that.
to do it right.
I said he was trying to do
some stuff right.
Correct.
But not all of it.
I didn't say that.
Yeah.
But I didn't say that.
I know. But you haven't said anything bad about this guy yet.
But what did he do that was bad? What did he do?
Their books, they had 2 sets of books. They had a set, and he knows all about these sets of books. He said, what do our books look like, as opposed to the books that they gave to the district attorney who was investigating their company. So, and there's obviously a reason why his company was getting investigated. Now, maybe it was from 6 years ago when his dad, when her dad was the...
Sorry to interrupt, but they make it a point, he makes it a point to say, just because I'm in this business doesn't mean I'm doing anything illegal.
Well, he's saying that to the district attorney.
Who agrees with him at the end of the film that you're exactly right. Now, granted, the district attorney shows his rear end at the end by saying, everybody needs...
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, everybody needs their, help. Everybody needs help. And obviously... Politically, correct. Wait, but I just got what I just said. But anyway, the point is that I don't think that he thought to himself what they were doing with the books was technically illegal, because she says to him, no, this isn't as bad as I'm pretty good at this. Like I did right by us by keeping these correctly. And then when they're
shoving boxes of paper.
But he's like, what the hell is all of this? What is this? Like, he has no clue there's that much.
Well, but she said I haven't gone through it yet, and she's trying to explain it to him, I guess.
Right, but he's surprised about that. So wouldn't that connotate that he...
didn't know about any of it?
That's what
I don't know. I guess I'm looking at it...
so cynical.
I know. I'm trying to figure out...
I'm shocked by it a little bit that you don't see it that way.
Well, so you've got this like weird character to me. Like it would be one thing, like Jessica Chastain's character is right there.
Right, because she's a cliche to a degree.
Okay. She's right there. Now his character is kind of like, so I need to be pulling for him because he's the good guy, yet he's doing bad things. So he's not just the good guy, and he's not an anti-hero. He's not Walter White, who's completely gone off the deep end, and he's not, Prince Charming either. So
okay,
I don't
so
know
they cook the books.
Where to sit on it. Like I don't know. So am I supposed to be hoping that they get away from the district attorney, hoping that their company is okay, even though the district attorney is looking into their books? Or am I supposed to be hoping that he dominates these other guys and grosses?
See, I think that's what's brilliant about it. I think that you're expecting him to be one way or another, and he's not.
Okay.
So at the end of the film, you're expecting this big bombshell that he knew all along, that he stole this money, he robbed these people, he really did this, he really did that. But he says, you can keep looking, but I don't want to spend 10 years of the next part of my life worrying about you looking over my shoulder. Mm-hmm. And the DA goes, well, as long as there's nothing to look at. And he goes, there's not.
So now
I'm a good guy.
Yeah.
So this whole entire film, you have your own way of looking at this guy, because we're so set on knowing this guy who looks like this with this haircut in the 80s who runs this business has to be a gangster.
Yeah.
So it's our own stereotypical view of this guy, and he's actually says something to that degree, like, I'm not what people think I am. Mm-hmm. And as an audience member, you're doubting it the whole time. You're like, he's gonna be sleeping with somebody else. He's gonna have kids with somebody else. He's gonna shoot somebody. He's gonna do something wrong. And you're gonna go, yep, I knew it. He was a bad guy the whole entire time. We were blindsided.
They're hiding it from us.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so I get that, and I understand that's what Shandor's playing on, but we haven't talked about how he interacts with other people, specifically the people in his business that are not his wife or Albert Brooks, who I think did a really good job.
Brilliant.
But I mean, he has a few scenes.
He's always great, though.
Just kills it.
Yeah, he does.
All right, that's enough about Albert Brooks for me. All right, so especially the driver who gets there's we're going to get into spoilers because I have to explain this or figure this out, I guess. So if you haven't seen it, then
see this movie and then see what side you fall on, because I'd be curious to see what people thought. I haven't read any reviews either. So
I haven't read any.
All right, so the driver.
Okay, so the driver gets attacked, and then he when he comes back to work, he before he comes back to work, as Abel takes him, the Oscar
Abel.
Isaac Abel, sorry, as Abel takes him back to his apartment, the driver asks Abel, "Hey, do you think I can get that sales job now? Because probably not going to get held
No,
up
he
at
says,
gunpoint."
"Do you think I'm ready?"
Fine. Do you think I'm ready for that sales job now? And Abel says, "No, you're not," which is probably he's being very honest. Maybe not. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But so that character is put in a tough position. The driver character is put in a tough position, or he feels like he's put in a tough position at the end of the movie. At the end of the movie, that character ends up, the very end of the movie, ends up coming out and shooting himself. And the bullet ends up going through his head or brain, whatever, and going into a tank that's filled with heating oil. And there's a leak in the tank. And before anything else happens, Abel goes over and plugs the hole in the tank without saying anything, plugs the hole in the tank, and then turns to the other people there, Albert Brooks,
Mm-hmm.
and then his wife, and says, "Somebody needs to call an ambulance." Now, you can just say like, "Well, it's fine, let's move on, it's the end of the movie," whatever. Or you could say that that's a character statement. And I tended to look at that as a character statement, in that number one priority is this business. And number two priority is, let's probably get this guy taken care of who just killed himself.
Okay. I agree with you 100% that it's a metaphor for how this guy sees life. But up to this point, what has this guy done for the guy who just shot himself in front of him? Okay.
Didn't fire him, I guess.
Wait. He gave him a job. He teaches him English. He promotes that he speaks English. He's obviously got him in some kind of training program, because he says, "Am I ready for this?" And he says, "No, I don't think you are." Okay. He has a relationship with him and his wife, the driver and his wife.
Ish.
Well, he has a relationship with them.
Did you
He's
see
trying
how
to
he
help,
interacted
but
with
he's
her, though?
because it's business first, and he's done all of this stuff for this guy. And he told this guy, "Do not get scared. Do not carry a firearm. Do not go against my wishes."
But
and the
he's the
guy
one
does
in
it anyway.
Exactly.
And then what are you supposed to do when you're running a business? I deal with this every single day. There's a fine line between human beings and business. And should the human being always come first? I would have to say, on record, no. Here's why. Because human beings are flawed and they make mistakes. And after you try to help people so many times, they even talk about this in Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous. The 15th time you pick that person up from falling down the stairs is going to be the last time, because you're enabling them to do that. He's given this guy a job. He's helped him learn English. He's got an established relationship with his wife and this worker. He has a personal relationship with this guy on some level. I'm not exactly sure what the relationship was. I think wherever Abel came from, this guy came from. Mm-hmm. And remember, because he says English to the guy, he says, "You must speak English." Yeah. He's promoting this guy to do better in his world. And this guy has idealistically almost looked up to Abel and said, "I'm going to be there with him one day." He even says that at one point. He says, "I'm going to." So Abel has done all of these things for him, okay? And on this masterful day that he's finally succeeded in business, getting to this point where he's bought this refinery, or this, I guess
it's a port. Yeah.
It's a port, right? Yeah, exactly. This guy decides to have the most selfish moment of his life right in front of the biggest business career choice this guy's made. And this guy walks in, and when Abel sees this guy, he knows what this guy's going to do, because he says, "Are you sure?" And the guy says, "Yeah, I think I got to do this." And Abel goes, "Okay, well," and then he gets practical. I've helped you. I've supported you. I've taught you a new language. I've given you a place to live. I've given you a secure job. I've given you training. I've tried to make you live your own life and be on your own 2 feet. And now you're asking me in your final selfish moment, when you're right before you're going to kill yourself, to make sure my family is okay. And what does Abel say? "Of course I will." He's a practical man who looks at the practical side of things and keeps the emotional side at bay, because you can't be in that high stakes of a career and be emotional about it. Mm-hmm. So he already knows when the guy walks around the corner that, like, everybody sees the gun, Albert Brooks and Jessica Chastain, and they get scared, like, oh, he's going to shoot us. And then he raises the gun.
But Abel knows he's not going to do that.
Abel knows he's going to kill himself.
Yeah.
And at that point, how much more do you give to another human being? So a person just shoots themselves. What are you supposed to do? Run over to him and say, wait, can I hold your head so you don't die? You just put that gun up against your neck. So of course, the next thing that he has to, or the first thing that he has to think about, is that all of this money he's just spent is oozing out. Mm-hmm. So is it lack of love of human beings? No, I think it's practicality, and I think he's a realist. He's done everything he could for this guy at this point.
So why couldn't he kill that deer?
He wasn't not killing the deer. He was waiting because he has empathy. Why was it okay for him to watch this guy shoot himself at the end? Because he's had this whole history with this guy. Mm-hmm. He's probably foreseen this guy coming to this conclusion, the truck driver guy. Mm-hmm. He maybe has some kind of suicidal tendencies. I don't know. We're reading way too much into it. Mm-hmm. But Abel is a practical man. So he takes a look at that deer and goes, I've never had to kill a deer before. This is what, could you just all of a sudden pick up a tire iron and smash a deer's head in? I mean, could you choke a dog to death like Kevin Spacey does in real life?
Well, that's a different situation, but yes.
What's the difference?
Well, the difference is that dog could have possibly been saved, whereas that deer out in the
So
middle
you
of
could
nowhere
have just
might not have been able to be saved.
How many tire irons have you hit?
Me personally, none.
Okay, so you would hesitate. And that scene's more about her than him anyway. That scene is more about,
it's about her showing that she has a gun.
I'm Lady Macbeth. Out, damn spot. All the blood's coming from my hands. She's like, dude, you need to start bucking up.
Yeah. No, I know,
so
but I mean,
you would just take it out and start smashing the deer's head in?
Why is that scene in the movie? I'm not trying to equate myself to him. I'm just saying, like, so that scene's in the movie just to say that she has a gun, or is it to show the dynamic of, like, what he's willing to do versus what she's willing to do?
He's willing to at least think about his choices first. But your question was, then why didn't he kill the deer immediately?
Was he going to get out if she didn't say,
if he plugs the hole in the oil first before he takes care of the human being, why can't he just smash the deer's head in? Which is what the kind of...
this is the weird dichotomy of this character.
I think it's brilliant. I think that's brilliant. I think that's how human beings are.
Okay, so also, and what I said earlier is that the director seems to, and I don't know if he wrote this or not. Did he write it? He seems to... yes, he wrote it also. So he seems to, in the two movies that I'm talking about, Margin Call and this one, he kind of inserts you into the situation where, like, there's these characters, and then you kind of, like, there's no ramp up. It's just like, boom, you're in this thing, and then he pulls you out, and then the arcs aren't as well defined. Do you feel like each of these characters had, even the main characters, had a defined arc, or do you feel like we're just kind of like looking at a snapshot of this guy's life?
It's called a slice of life film.
Yeah,
there's an actual term for it. Yeah, and I can tell you the one moment that it bothered me, and only the one moment that it bothered me. All of a sudden, he's jogging during the day. You see a moving van. Next thing you know, they're moving into a big house. But that's after you see him pulling up to the house at one point. So you think they're already living at the house.
That was weird.
That insert
must have been checking on it, I guess.
He must have been, I don't know.
The realtor.
Yeah, something like that. Signing the paperwork, whatever it is. But you talked about the jogging at the beginning of the film, just to switch just a moment.
Well, the reason why the jogging's in there is to show that later on he can catch that guy. So, I mean...
So we got the same things from the film, but we saw it in a different way. Very fascinating, because I thought that was brilliant, because I hate it when you're watching a movie and all of a sudden somebody's just able to sprint through New York City and jump over cabs and leap over tall buildings and do all this stuff, and you're like, dude, you were just on the couch eating French fries. How did you just run from that guy like that? So it made sense that he could do that. So I have no problem with, or no issues with, inserting a part of life. Sometimes I think filmmakers spend way too much time trying to create this arc and this flow of a character, and you have to show every beginning, middle, and end, and every moment, and every motivation, and everything. Sometimes I like to see, this is my interpretation of somebody's life. What am I getting out of it? I was fascinated by it.
It doesn't seem as satisfying to me. Like, would you consider The Big Lebowski? Would you consider that a slice of life movie? Because
no, that's a heist film, or that's
the same. He's the same beginning to end. He lost Donnie, and he's met all these weird, crazy people.
The fact that he doesn't snap in a most violent year, one way or another, he doesn't completely shut down because the stress is so much, or completely becomes violent. And the way that everybody is pushing him, the fact that he stays even tone is brilliant.
Okay.
For me, it was brilliant because there are moments where he's like, especially with her, he's like, and he does snap a little bit. He grabs her and holds on to her. And he basically says, you know what? Do not make me that guy who hits his wife. And you're pushing me that way.
Yeah.
I'm not that guy. And you're pushing me, and you're pushing me, and you're pushing me. And now you've pushed me to the point where I have to show you how strong and how much I can hurt you. Maybe these feminists who don't like Joss Whedon would think of it differently. But for me, it was like she pushed and she pushed and she pushed. And finally, it's almost she had to be proven that he had that in him, but he was holding that at bay. He was holding it back. He didn't want to disrespect the Hasidic Jew at the beginning. He didn't want to disrespect the gangster's daughter. He didn't want to disrespect the other gangster who, I can't think of any other term, I guess owners of these.
The
oil.
Companies.
The other guy who had the racquetball court in his.
Yeah.
He didn't want to disrespect any of them by becoming what they wanted him to become. The restraint, I thought, was brilliant.
Mm-hmm. And I do think that as far as his performance goes, I mean, it to me, it seems like it's a difficult role, and I think that he did a good job. But my reasons for saying it's a difficult role is, like I was saying, is that it's such a, to me, it just seems like a frustratingly written character. Like there's not as much to sink your teeth in. Ex Machina, you could do that all day, you know, but
yeah, it's interesting because I thought this was going to be a pro for you, not
and
a
maybe
con.
Maybe you're looking at it from the actor standpoint.
I think I am.
And I'm looking at it from a viewer standpoint of like,
Yeah.
where do I get on board with this guy?
Yeah.
Because there's no backstory.
Yeah.
Or very little.
I gotcha.
You know, and
I saw
nothing
it.
happens.
I see it now, how you've seen it. I see it. But I thought this was a pro versus a con. For me, yelling and screaming and acting defensive and blaming somebody and, you know, pushing somebody and shoving somebody and or laughing and giggling and this heightened emotion for me is easier to cling on to as an actor. To just sit and have a conversation with somebody in a scene and you're not physically doing anything, you're not even drinking. You know, although actors, if you watch, are always doing something. They always have keys. They always have wine because acting is about doing. It's just like she goes over and she pours that wine when she comes in. Jessica Chastain comes in, the babysitter.
Yeah.
She pours the wine. That's that scene we were just talking about. But to just have a conversation and to have dialogue that's not this heightened, overly emotional scene, I think is way harder to pull off as believable. Then it would be as if all of a sudden we walked past those two people in a park and we heard them having a conversation. Would we believe them if they were two actors just having the same conversation? If they were fighting, if they were laughing, the emotion, the strong emotion makes us believe whatever's happening in front of us. If they were just having a conversation and they weren't really good at what they were doing, it would be like, those are two fake actors trying to sound like they're having a real conversation. But to have a real conversation between two people, especially a scripted conversation that you've had 30 times in the same day, and then to hold it all so tight, like she got to let it out a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, she's very good. I don't understand her. She disappears in everything she does. I can physically see that's Jessica Chastain. I can see that. but the whole talk and the use guys thing she was doing.
I didn't even think about her being in Interstellar until right now. Like I didn't even
think about her in The Help. Have you seen The Help?
Yeah.
That's not the same person.
I don't put that together. Or Zero Dark 30. Or
it's not the same person.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's like it's like a clone of the same person who grew up in a bunch of different places of the country, and that's who she is, because she is definitely a chameleon. Even though she looks like a leading actress and she's beautiful to look at, she can change and alter who she is right in front of you. It's amazing what she can do.
And you saw Take Shelter? Have you seen that?
Yeah, she's great in that. In The Tree of Life, she's great in that. I love her. Even that cheeseball horror film that she did, Mother or whatever.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
She plays like this kind of goth punk rock chick, and you're like, it takes a while to recognize who she is. You're like, who is that?
Did she do that a long time ago?
No, that was in between her first Oscar nomination and her second, I think.
Okay.
I think it was just her mainstream horror film. Everybody does one. You know, Jennifer Lawrence did one, that House Down the Street or whatever it's called. But anyway, she's amazing. Always has been, probably always will be. She's probably going to win an Oscar in her lifetime. That's an easy bet. Albert Brooks, he wrung it out for every ounce he could get it out of, but he has a tendency to be able to do that. He just can stand in the background and he's interesting to look at. There's something interesting about him. As a matter of fact, I'm watching Weeds, which is on Netflix, and I'm finally catching up on it. He has a short story arc in there too, and he's phenomenal in it. He's great. But to actually play the character that's restrained, but is not expecting to be restrained, I think is really hard to do. And I think I admire Oscar Isaac way more than I ever have. And he's been really damn good in everything.
Yeah.
There's just something I thought about this movie consistently from the time I ended watching it till right now. I could not stop thinking about it. But I'm not convincing you of a thing. I can see it in your eyes.
Well, just what you just said. I mean, like, I haven't really thought of it since then.
That says something.
Other than I was like, you know what? I need to figure out who was the cinematographer on that movie, because I don't know why I got such a. I thought it looked
real.
I think maybe it's just a little bit more. See, and David Fincher rings the digital, rings those cameras out as much as he can too. I mean,
but he heightens it a little bit.
He does.
Doesn't look real.
He lights the scenes.
Well, maybe
and this guy does not light his scenes.
Maybe he lit the scene like they were making the movie in 1981. Maybe that's what you could do in
if you lit it in 1981, they'd have crazy hot spots on the, I mean, it would, if it was like it was a 1981 movie, then they didn't have digital cameras and they didn't have, I mean, things look, I mean, there's people's faces that just fall off. You can't even see half of their face, or you can't even see like the corner of a room, or
kind of like that.
And it's, to me, like, it's one thing if you're trying to make it, spooky, or if you're trying to do something about it, but it seems like the cinematographer is purposefully saying, like, no, we don't need light over there. We don't need to, we don't need to do anything, but just put this camera down. And maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe I'm talking way out of school or whatever, but.
No, you know a lot about this.
But it just seems like
you have the right to have an opinion on this.
Think of the movie. Think of her. Think of that movie.
Right.
And what that movie looks like.
But it called for something more stylistic. With this film, if her looked like this film, I would have been upset, because her called for a stylistic choice that looked as pristine as that film did. Mm-hmm. It added to the story. For me, the story of a person who just wants to do the right thing and is under a pressure cooker maybe doesn't need as many stylistic choices. So if it's shot that way, it looked like a real house. It looked like a real
yellow.
It looked like a real city. It never bothered me. It looked like if you stepped out of a car and saw that house in real life, that's exactly how it would look. And I can appreciate that, because sometimes I think because of the digital age, they go way overboard with making that truck look that much greener, or that much dirtier, or the streets of New York that much textured, when sometimes you just shoot a film because it's about the inner integrity of a person, or not the non-integrity, whatever the opposite of integrity is. Mm-hmm. maybe it's just supposed to be shot straight on. It didn't bother me for a split second. Okay. I'm going to go back and watch it. Here's my challenge to you. I'm going to go back and watch it. I'm going to watch it through that stylistic choice and see what you're talking about. Sometime.
Just look at the dark scenes and any kind of like outdoor scene. Everybody's yellow.
Okay.
And not in a naturalistic way either.
Gotcha.
And things are flat.
So. Okay. Fair enough. And I will eventually explore this film again, but I challenge you to explore it again and watch how much is going on underneath Oscar Isaac's eyes to the point where I thought one of them was going to pop out at one time because he was so constrained and so tense, but he wasn't allowed to show anybody any of that, because if he let that thread go, then everything would unravel just like he was trying to hold on to everything. So go back and watch it sometime in the future and see what you might see, you might not see. And I'll do the same thing.
All right. Well, I'll watch it. How about this? I'll watch it when Oscar Isaac wins his Academy Award, because he will.
Okay, fair enough. And I have to watch Ex Machina again, remember?
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
So that's what we'll do.
I'm telling you, I never meant to say a bad word about Oscar Isaac. I don't think that I did. I think I did praise him, and I think he's amazing. Now I'm borderline obsessed with him because I just didn't think he had that in him. I thought everything he did, even though Llewellyn Davis Lewin. What I keep saying Llewellyn, and I know
everybody does that.
I know, and I know not to. And I purposely looked it up today so I wouldn't. Lewin, inside Llewyn Davis, no disrespect. I thought he was playing sort of that buffoonish character, and I thought it was a bit exaggerated in place. And I thought anybody could have played this role. Now that I've seen him do what he did in A Most Violent Year,
I have to see it again too, because
convinced.
and it's that whole, we did a whole episode on it,
I see why he's working.
First time you watch a Coen Brothers movie.
True.
And so after these two, kind of a 1-2 punch of like within 3 weeks we've seen him in 2 movies, and I
kept trying.
Back,
I kept trying to see the guy from Ex Machina in this guy, and I can see. He's only 35 years old.
That was another problem I had, which we didn't even talk about. We don't have time to talk about. Looks like he's probably supposed to be about 45 years old in this movie, and he's 35 years old.
You think he looks 35?
He's got like a streak of gray in his crazy big coiffed hair.
I think he looked older than he was supposed to. I mean, I think he looked older. I think he looked older than he really is in real life.
Yes,
which is what he was supposed to.
I understand that, but it's just weird. It makes me think.
But he doesn't look that old in Ex Machina.
No, he doesn't.
It's weird.
Yeah, it's weird.
And he's Guatemalan.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And that's another thing I thought was amazing, was because once again, you're thinking this guy's Italian. You think this guy comes from the Bronx.
We talked about him.
Yeah.
He's Ben Kingsley. That's what he is.
Totally.
Yeah.
But in this movie in particular, you think he's supposed to be from the Bronx or particularly from some city in New York, and he was born and raised an Italian mafia wannabe, so forth and so on, but he's not. Mm-mm. And they don't even try to, of course he's not.
Morales in the movie,
exactly.
So,
I mean, which is great. But he could have very easily played an Italian mobster type guy.
He could. In fact, I thought that's what he was when in the trailer, when watching the trailer.
That's why I thought it was great, because he's not.
No.
Brilliant.
Yeah. What was the other thing? Oh, yeah. So the next thing that he's going to get to do, and that he's going to have to prove to us, is that he can play a character in the Star Wars universe without making it bland and boring.
Before this movie, I would have gone, I'm not so sure about this. What is this all about? Like Adam Driver. I'm a little concerned.
Okay.
I like him.
He may not even do his own voice. You don't even know.
That's fine. I like him a lot. How he's going to fit into this universe is a whole nother thing. Oscar Isaac. And when I saw him in the X-Wing fighter, I was like, wait, what? What is Llewyn Davis doing inside an X-Wing? This is, come on.
And also when you see the Annie Leibovitz picture, it looks really funny too.
Yeah,
he's like hanging off the side of the X-Wing. You're like, oh,
what?
man.
Wait, what? Where's Luke at, dude? What's up? But after this movie, I'm in. Whatever he does, I'm in.
Yeah.
I am officially an Oscar Isaac fan.
All right. Well, let's see if there's anything else. He's Apocalypse in X-Men Apocalypse. I think we already did this.
Yeah, that's ridiculous to even be happy about that. That makes perfect sense to me.
So, and then it looks like he's got another movie coming out this year, Mojave. It's a William Monahan movie. He wrote The Departed.
Oh, okay.
And this is maybe his first directorial effort.
Oscar Isaac.
William Monahan, sorry, wrote and directed this movie called Mojave. A suicidal artist goes into the desert where he finds his doppelganger, a homicidal drifter.
And so he's going to play two people?
The star, I guess. And Mark Wahlberg and Walton Goggins are in it also.
Oh, please.
So,
come on.
Yeah. So that's supposedly coming out this year. Okay. Well, we've got a Facebook page, and you should go to it. It's facebook.com/actor-and-engineer. On Twitter, we're @actor-engineer. And we have a website that you can comment on, or you can just go there and download the podcast. You can get it on iTunes, any of those places. Our website is actorandengineer.com. And you could just look us up on iTunes and give us a rating, Tell us how much you love us.
Or how much you agree with me and not Josh about A Most Violent Year.
Well, you can't hold that against Paul for liking a movie that's really just not that great.
Good for you. That was good, man. I didn't think I was going to get that in, but you got me. Good. All right, touche.
All right.
You win. Not on the movie, though.
Okay, fine. Last word.